All right, welcome everybody to the Turning Land into New Housing Communities series. So one of our 6-part series. Today we're going to be going over designing the communities and managing the civil engineer process. This is probably the least understood part, and I think the most important, because this is really where you can you can either make a lot of money or lose a lot of money with the whole civil engineering process. This part's really important to understand. I compare it to the architectural plans of a house. You don't really know how much it's going to cost to build a house until you get the architectural plans. This is the CDs. Those are the architectural plans to all the utilities, the roads, the grading, and everything. And yours truly, Mr. Alex Sadoff, is going to walk us through it today. And with that, I will kick things over to Mr. Alex. How you doing, man?
What's up? What's up? Good morning, everybody. We're gonna cover, like Brandon said, uh, really in land development, and the reason I like entitlement is because um, once we hand it off to a civil engineer, they kind of run with it, but they just design what they design, right? Just like uh, an architect maybe want to design a pretty house, but not the most efficient house to build and not the most cost effective and profitable house, right? So we want to make sure that our development is beautiful, cost effective, and profitable. If it's not profitable, you're not going to do it again. So for us to be, in the business for a while, we need to make sure it's profitable. So that give and take with a civil engineer is really important. Really, then understanding what the civil engineer is actually giving you is important. So today we're going to cover kind of like the process, um, and reading the CDs. I think that's the meat and potatoes of what we'll cover today. So let's just jump right in. I think we still got a couple stragglers, but we'll just start at the top. All right. So I've been doing this for quite a while. My background is in, for those that don't know me, is I did 17 years in the military. I started wholesaling, had a portfolio of Airbnbs and rentals, got into flipping houses and then flipping houses into new construction, and then graduated from new construction into land development. And I'll let Brandon do his little.
Yeah, my name is Brendan Kahn, one of the co-founders of HBG Capital. We're a real estate investment firm based here in Nashville. We focus on affordable new housing communities. So we turn land into beautiful new communities. We work with the city to do that. I mainly do the capital raising, investor relations. I joke I don't like to get my fingernails dirty. I keep them nice and clean. Alex over here, he doesn't mind getting out in the field doing the dirty stuff. He primarily manages all of our land acquisitions. He manages the planning commission and the oversight of the rezone entitlement processes and the construction side of things. And I'm more of the operations, the underwriting, and sitting behind a desk.
There you go. All right, so that's enough about us. So why are we doing this? Because we just found that there was a void, right? There was a void in land development. A lot of people talk about how to flip houses. A lot of folks just like, oh, get in my mastermind to build homes, but no one really talks about how to do land development. And specifically. So we thought that there was a void, and we wanted to share that, our knowledge, and we've cut our teeth, we've paid the dumb tax and paid the tuition and made some mistakes along the way, right, in our growth. And we want to share with others how to set your team up, how to do it the right way, because it's very scalable. It can be done everywhere where you see a house built. So, and we our intention is to build a community of folks that are doing this all over the United States. So we have a 6-part series in our land development because there's just a lot to cover. So every week we'll just cover a section. Today we're going to be covering the designing the community and working with a civil engineer. So that'll be from a concept phase. So you have the land under contract. Now you're starting the concept phase and kind of working with the city, going through an annexation, in a rezoning, or preliminary plat approval, and then into the construction drawings. And the construction drawings, really, that's where you really need to understand what you're doing, and understand there's some critical things that you must follow, so then you don't, over design, under design, or really miss some critical things. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if you do want uh, essentially all of these recordings, you can go to learnlanddevelopment.com, and we'll have a slide at the end. I'll talk about that. You can get all of the recordings for free that you can kind of go over and have our free course. So what did we cover last week? Last week, we talked about speaking to the planning staff and council and figure out what kind of density is supported. Talk about what is the actual price of a lot and how do you calculate what the price per lot is going to be. Calculate the development costs in that area and shifts by, by city and state, of course. And then figure out how do you calculate the offer to a seller. And then how to hire a civil engineer and really the right engineer, what you're looking for there, and what other required studies that you definitely want to make sure that you have before you get too far into the entitlement process. Because let's say it's it's a nuclear waste site, you probably don't want to put homes on there, right? So you probably want to do that on the front end. You got that study, it's a nuclear waste site, don't want to put homes on it, so you don't want to go pay for all these other things, right? So there is steps in the process, and if you skip a step, you're taking a humongous risk. So what is our goal today? We covered those items yesterday. Today we're going to be talking about what is civil engineering, what is a concept plan, how do we get to a preliminary plat, what is civil engineering drawing and design, and then the final plat approval. Okay, so we'll cover those things. And then what is land development? For those of you that's for your first time, land development is getting raw land like this. So woods, right, that you drive by around your neighborhood. And then, paper entitlement is just putting imaginary, lines to create these imaginary lots where you could put homes on. So that's land entitlement, and AKA, selling approved paper, right? So that is, yes, this land, these woods are now can have 10, 20, 50, 100 lots put on them. And then furthermore, then a developer, which we are, we push all of our own dirt, put in all of our utilities. We take it on some of our deals through the entire process, and we'll actually develop. We'll take those blueprints, those construction drawings that we'll be talking about later, and we actually follow through. We'll go ahead and fund that, and we'll get the money, and we'll actually put in all the utilities and do all the grading, put in all the roads and sewer and water and storm water and the asphalt and sidewalks, and then turn it over to a national home builder. So there's two options: one, sell the paper, and two, actually sell finished lots to national home builders. There's pros and cons to both, and this is a lot faster of a process, right? So construction drawings are finished, and then you sell that to a national home builder or a developer that wants to develop. And then this is a lot longer of a process because you have to actually do the development, right? So, and the process definitely is depending on what state and county and municipality you're in. It can be shorter and or longer. If you're in California, I'm sorry, it's a long process, or New York, New Jersey, etc. Okay. So if you have any questions today, please put them in the chat at the end of the course. We're going to go ahead and try to answer all your questions that you have. There's just a lot to cover, so I'll kind of just jump right in. Okay. So my story, Army officer, I'm a logistics officer the last 10 years in special operations. I got out at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's there at the border of Clarksville and Hopkinsville, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. And in my service, I started, flipping houses, Airbnbs. This is me hiring the wrong guy to put in our sewer and water. And he didn't show, and he was sending people, and I just kind of jumped in, had to take care of them. Then we went from, like I said, flipping houses to new construction to and now developing neighborhoods. So if I can do this, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box. I promise, if you follow a process, you can too. So we talked about a paper lot deal. It was one of the first entitlement process. Paper lot deals. This is one that we just did in Smyrna, Tennessee. And there you go. We made $446,000. It was pretty easy deal. It would have been easier if the person that brought it to us actually followed. There's some missteps, but I think it was a really good learning lesson for that person um, to honestly to make. It probably would have taken 6 months, but it took 12 months. And you know, we didn't have to. It probably took about 20 hours of work, honestly. And so it's pretty good return on investment there. And then this is another project where we you know, took that paper, but we actually got it funded and put in the actual lots. As you can tell, this is a townhome development. There was 36 homes there. There's about 34 single family lots here. This is actually called Sadoff Cobb Way in White Bluff, Tennessee. And this is called Lala Loop. So Sadoff is my last name, Cobb is Brandon's last name, and Lala is my mom's name. So Lala Loop there. So that's something cool that you can do when when you develop properties. Even if you're entitled in paper, you can kind of name it and honor people that mean something to you, and just leave a legacy behind. So I think that's one of the coolest things. That's one of my favorite things to do. Oh yeah. Anyway, so the free giveaway. So free giveaway for us is our land development accelerated program. You can go to get all the recordings for all the courses that we have done on learnlanddevelopment.com. All the entire process, the 6-part series is going to be on there. So if you want that, go to learnlanddevelopment.com, download the course. It's there for you. Again, what is civil engineering? So civil engineering is the designing of infrastructure such as roads, utilities, stormwater. The two most expensive things in horizontal construction, right? So, which is what is civil engineering kind of in our scope covers, is moving dirt and taking care of stormwater, right? So when you have those big old trucks moving dirt, you want to move it one time. You want to move it in the most efficient way, right? So if you could just imagine, if you've got the heaviest piece of furniture in your house, right? If you ask your mom, hey, mom, your mom's like, I want you to move the couch there, right? And you want to make sure are you sure like this is where you wanted to go, right? Like I have this, it's a very heavy couch and I got to do it by myself. So you want to move that thing one time. You want to be, it really suck if you were there and trying to have to move that couch 7 or 8 different times around. So that's kind of the analogy I'm making to you don't want to be moving that dirt all around because it's very, very, very expensive. The machines are very expensive. The diesel is very expensive. So we want to move it. We only want to move it once, and we want to move it the most efficient way. Okay. So when we're looking at a set of plans, we're going to be talking about the civil drawing set. I'm actually at the end of closer to the end of the presentation. Before we get to the civil drawing plans, we're going to start with, the conceptuals. But the civil drawing set is very extensive. It has multiple sheets, and we'll kind of go through it really quick for you. And I'll kind of hit the things that if you were to take this on, there are some items that I will cover at the end that I think are critical and that you can really lose your butt on if you don't hit on these. And if you do, you can save a significant amount of money. So I'll cover those at the end. So how do we start? So right now you have you have a piece of property, you got it under contract, and you like, where do you start? So you start by really talking to the staff, right? The stakeholders, right? So you want to be, you want to be able to talk to the planning commission, you want to be able to talk to the city council, the planning staff, right? What do they want in the area? So then, let's say that they want single family homes or whatever have you that they say, right? So you have to be able to make sure that you design a concept plan. A concept plan is literally just a basic drawing of what it is that you're going to actually put, right? It's not exact, but it is it's trying to dial in the correct lot dimensions, widths, and etc. to put those onto paper so you can understand the density that you're going to be able to get. Okay. So this is an actual concept plan. So we would take this concept plan that will be done by a civil engineer, and we'll put all of the roads and etc. that is in accordance with that local municipality. Specifically in this municipality, they have what's called the Hartman overlay, right? If this was regular, let's just say another Dixon County, I probably could fit maybe 70 homes on there, but their requirement is a rear load townhome, right? So now you have alleys that you have to put in as well. There's a specific front setback requirement. So for that all to be able to be fit in there, you need to have a civil engineer to understand the radiuses that are required of those roads, the widths of those roads, the width of the sidewalk and curbs, etc., and the stormwater requirements to make sure that we have all of the pieces that are required to make this development work. And then we'll know exactly how many of these homes, the width and depth of homes that we can actually fit, right? So you have to have a basic concept plan, and then you will take this concept plan to the city to see if you're in line with their intent and their vision for this set piece property. Okay. So, and what is important? So why is it important? It is because it takes a lot of time and money if we skip this step. So this step, let's say, costs maybe, for us now, it costs maybe $1,500. If you're starting a relationship with a civil engineer, it maybe cost a few $1,000. But it's an important step because now you have something that's concrete that you can share with the stakeholders. Okay. It's going to talk about the sewer, the water, the connectivity. When we talk about connectivity, the road connectivity, the power requirements that are going to be coming into the site, like where's the power going to be coming from? Where's the water going to be coming from? Where's the gas going to be coming from? If there's a creek, what is the distance that we need to stay away from the creek, which is called buffer zones? All of those things are going to be taken into account when we're creating a concept plan. So as a general plan of what it is that we're going to be doing. And you also take into account while you're doing this, you'd be taking into account so this is rather flat on this, so this may not be you'll be taking into account, I don't know if you could see this, but this is the lines there. So this is the state has what's called LIDAR, which is the contours, the contours of the earth, right? And how it actually lays to make sure that you're not putting a box onto a side of a cliff, because you probably couldn't do that. So it takes that into account as well. On this side, we knew that it was pretty flat, so the contours were not really that important. So what do we do? How do we hire an engineer to do this? For our firm, we focus on hiring a civil engineer that is recommended by the municipality that I'm trying to submit to. So whoever they like working with, that's probably going to be the civil engineer that I'm going to hire. So when I talk to them, I ask them, who do they recommend? They'll give me a couple firms, and I'll reach out to those firms and I'll ask for a concept plan. The reason I do that is because they have a working relationship with that municipality, and that planning staff and and engineering staff knows best on who is good engineer and who is bad and who they have a good working relationship with. Okay. Again, the good concept plan is going to have this, they want a good civil engineering firm is going to have a good land planner, and that is somebody that knows exactly how to lay out a site. They want to have actual civil engineer that can sign off on the actual construction drawings that we're going to go into if this concept is approved and the preliminary plat is approved. And the reason for that is because they got that civil engineer in there to see if their land planning, that concept plan, is actually going to be able to get built in reality, right? So it's a good check on azimuth to see if that land planner is in line. So what we got to do. So when we're creating the concept plan, we want to make sure that what is the zoning? Like, what can we put on here? So sometimes folks are like, oh, I'm going to put an apartment here, or I'm going to put townhomes here. There may be a moratorium on townhomes, or maybe a moratorium on apartments. Even if the zoning says potentially that you can do this, there also may be an unwritten moratorium where no one, yeah, you can put townhomes here, but no one on the planning commission is going to vote for townhomes because they don't want townhomes anymore. They have enough. They want single family homes. So a good civil engineering firm is going to be able to tell you those unspoken things that the planning commission and or the city council and the planning department has. Okay. Brandon, any questions? Anybody got any questions so far?
No, you're good, man. There's a couple questions in the chat, but we'll save them to the very end.
Cool. All right. So how do you know if you need to rezone? So you got this concept plan, let's just say it's a commercial lot, it's got road frontage, and you want to check what the current zoning is. So the current zoning is going to be on GIS map. You can call the planning staff and ask them what their current zoning for that is. Like I said, it may say that it'll support townhomes or single family. You really want to make sure that the way that you know for sure is you call the planning staff and you get it from the horse's mouth what they'll actually support, right? All these other tools where there's GIS map or their subdivision in zoning regulations are a good start. But before you solidify your way forward in a concept plan design, you want to make sure that you have spoken to the stakeholders, and that's typically the senior planner or the planning director of the municipality that you are trying to design a subdivision in. Okay, so planning director, lead planner, those two people need to tell you what they think, and don't try to fight them. You want to make sure that they're your friends. All right, so I spoke about the GIS, right? Real easy on the front end. You want to kind of have an understanding of what you're dealing with. So if we're in Nashville, we'll go to nashville.gov. There's the parcel viewer. We'll kind of go into a site. We'll try to figure out what the zoning classifications for my site is. So I'll go to the parcel viewer. It'll tell me what, let's say R6. It'll say this is zoned R6. I will then take that R6, go to the zoning classifications, and I didn't pull that up here, but you can go to the zoning ordinance, figure out what the R6 is, and it'll say 6,000 square foot lots. And let's say you have, 60,000 square foot of lot, and you can be like, oh man, I now could put 10 homes here, possibly, right? So now this is where you kind of start your math. So and what you do is, and you'll go ahead and you'll compare your site and what it is that you want to do. Let's say you want to put townhomes. Are there townhomes or single family homes in and around here? If the zoning allows, you can go ahead and put that in there. What if, and sometimes you have commercial site and you're like, oh, I want to put townhomes here. And if there's no commercial, if there's no residential plan, future plan for this area in the city's future plan, or when you talk to the city, they may not let you spot rezone that area, but they may. So again, take that municipality, the agency review, they'll go ahead and the planning staff will tell you what they want and don't want. Take that, and based on their guidance, you'll create your concept plan. You'll submit your concept plan to that planning staff. So the planning staff is the staff that works for the planning commission. The planning commission are the members that have been placed by the mayor to vote on subdivisions to be approved or disapproved within the municipality. And in certain instances, when rezoning happens, the planning commission will then, because rezoning is an ordinance and ordinances are passed by city council, they will then make a recommendation for approval or disapproval to the next body who has the authority to approve that, and that is the city council. So in this, if you're doing a preliminary plat or subdivision plat, typically a plats are approved at the planning commission. If you're doing a PUD, which is a planned unit development, which is its own zoning classification. And in Nashville, a PUD would be it's kind of synonym to an SP, which is site plan, and that'll go to the city council, but first it needs to go to the planning commission. So what you'll do is you'll take your concept plan. Your concept plan will then just get more refined, and it'll show, it'll have then your sewer and water placement, and once the planning staff says you're good, you'll go into a preliminary plat. Okay, so preliminary plat will begin, and the preliminary plat will be a little more refined of a plan given all the comments from the city. All right, so then you go to a planning commission. So the planning commission typically meets once a month. They have what's called a work session, and they have the actual meeting. The work session is typically a week prior or a few days prior to actual voting day. And the voting day is when they vote. At the work session, they don't vote. At the work session, that's where they'll talk about, you present your planning, you present your subdivision, and they'll say, hey, I've got 36 townhomes I want to put here. We talk to your planning staff, everybody's okay with it. The planning department or the planning staff will make a recommendation. Hey, planning commission, we at the staff recommend approval of this because it's in line with our zoning, it's in line with our future plan and growth within our city. And then the planning commission at the work session will go back and forth with you on what it is that you intend to do, etc. They may ask some questions. You'll come back the next week, and they will then have a voting day where they'll vote for and or against your plan. What's important is you want to make sure when you're doing this, when you're talking to the planning staff, what we do at our firm is that we talk to the planning department and we make sure that what is important to those commissioners, the planning commissioners. So let's say you have one single mom and she's got 2 jobs and she's also a planning commissioner. So playgrounds and the proximity to playgrounds is very important for her. So me maybe designing a playground onto my concept plan may be wise, right? Maybe another planning commissioner is a dog lover, so that designing a small dog park in my subdivision may be something that is wise to do, right? So what is it that is important to every single, and what is the planning commission's initiatives? What is important to them? And then I want to make sure that I put that into my concept / then next step, my preliminary plat, to ensure that they understand that I'm listening to what is important to them and their constituents, okay? So let's say we went through that and we go to the meeting at 6 p.m. You're tired, and all of a sudden you get, you know what? Sure, ma'am, your plan is approved. You're good to go. Wow, what a relief. So now you get a piece of paper that is then approved. Can I get one of those things? Yeah, so then you get a plat that is approved. So then you're like, oh man, I can go and just start building this thing right now, like tomorrow. I'm gonna go to Home Depot and I'm gonna start, right? So you get this and you get this little stamp. It's all good, and everybody signs it, and you have a plat. So a preliminary plat means that you can either do one of 2 things. You can go and get a cost of construction. You can work on your construction set, and so that's the next step. And after you get your construction set, you can either go and begin construction, or you can go and pull bonds on the full project and then get a final plat. In our case, what we like to do is we get the preliminary plat, we get the construction set, and then we flip the paper, or we get the preliminary plat, we work on the construction set, and then we begin construction. Okay.
But just to clarify, once you get your preliminary plat approval, you cannot start construction. That's what it sounded like. You made it sound like you can just go start doing construction once you get your preliminary plat approval.
Right. All right. So what do you do when you get your
hang on one second. You're saying that you can go and start construction after you get your preliminary plat approval?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Okay.
is you cannot start construction. You get your preliminary plat. This is great, right? So the next thing that happens is all the preliminary plat is the city, the municipality now has authorized you to subdivide this property in these little boxes in these segments. This is now set, right? And that's an understanding between you and that local municipality that says, yes, sure, ma'am, we like these little boxes, these imaginary boxes that are going to be then drawn and designed on this property. So for this to now become a reality, this is where the civil engineer is going to actually have to create the blueprints as like, right? So, hey, like just like if you were to build a house, oh, I want to go build a house. Look at this picture. It's amazing. It's going to be a gajillion billion-dollar home. Okay, well, great. Now you have to go hire an architect to like design this gajillion billion-dollar home. Well, in our case, we now have to take this plan and this imaginary thing, right? And that's been understood between us and this local government. And we have to now take that and get a civil engineer to actually make it a reality. Do the grading plan, do the stormwater plan, do the sewer and water plan, the road design, and the fire design, and all those things to make sure that it is habitable and that it's safe to live in and that it can be built, and give the instructions to our civil constructors to actually how to actually build this, right? So
Yeah.
that is the next step. And I would say the most important step in the process. So now we would be in our construction document, AKA CDs, not like the old CDs that skip in your car, but CDs like an actual set of blueprints for civil engineering for horizontal construction. Is that
Yeah.
more clear?
Yeah. No, you outlined it perfectly. Originally, it sounded like you can just go start digging
You can
once
go
you
to
get
Home
your
Depot and get
preliminary
a
plat
shovel and
approval.
start. Get some pipe
Yeah.
and go.
So the preliminary plat is essentially your piece of paper that says we will allow this community. It's a celebratory moment. They said, yes, we want this community. It's approved, contingent on you giving us a design for that community and the city's in-house civil engineering blessing it. So there'll be some back and forth as you're building the civil drawings. Your civil engineer will go back and forth with the city's civil engineer team to make sure that everything is designed properly to code, everything is looking really good. And that's where we're at now, is actually the design portion. And once you get that CD blessed and signed off on, at that point, you're ready to rock and roll.
That's correct, sir. All right. So everybody see my screen. So now we can nerd out. Okay, so this document is 44 pages. I'm gonna kind of fly through it. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will try to answer them at the end. We will cover. I'll try to cover every single sheet. I may go a little faster just because we're getting kind of tight on time. It's a lot to cover in about 15 minutes. So here we go. Get this. Hold on, see this. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Can you see the screen? Okay, great. All right. So this is a subdivision that we are doing. Okay. The first page of a civil engineering plan has your title block, right? What is this called? So Clemens Crossing is the subdivision. The address and the parcel of the actual property. Sometimes it'll have based on the municipality, it's going to have exactly, is obviously it'll have the engineer here in the center, and it'll have the actual engineer who's designing it. A second, let me go here. To the right as well. Sometimes it's to the top, sometimes it's the bottom, but it's typically here in the margins. In Nashville, it'll also have your stormwater permit number and your preliminary SP approval. See that? So, and your final SP approval. So this thing is an approved preliminary approved final, and now stormwater approved the grading on this thing as well. Okay. On this, so then you have what's called up top, you have what's called a benchmark. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's two. And what a benchmark is a confirmed point of reference that is verified point by GPS that says this is our 10-digit grid, right? And it says that this is this point. Sometimes it's, let's say, a top of a fire hydrant, let's say, right? And it's going to say this is the point, and the top of this is at, you know, at this here it's at 446.88 elevation above sea, and at this coordinate, right, at this elevation, north and south, right? So you have a GPS coordinate for it. The reason it's important when we're doing civil engineering plans, we're talking about everything here talks about elevation and benchmark, and all that is, if you could just imagine your latitude, longitude, right? Your left to right, and the elevation is the depth of which you're going to be able to design your road, your sewer, etc. These benchmarks that are set onto a site have a little GPS puck that we put on there, and it talks to all of the little tractors and all of the equipment to ensure that we're digging as deep on our, as per the civil engineer that, you know, in these design plans, and we are at that depth. It's just a confirmation to make sure that we are calibrated on this site. It's our calibration point to the site. It's called AKA benchmarks. Very important. All right. So talks about the developer. It'll give you who owns the property. Okay. And then you have what's called general notes and specific site data and special notes. Okay. That is all here. It talks about what kind of property this is. In every single municipality, the cover sheet sometimes is super detailed. It has a lot of data on it, and sometimes it doesn't. It just based on the municipality. In Nashville, it's very specific because every single reviewing body wants their specific notes. So the SP department, which is like the planning staff, wants you to have all these notes on here. Talks about the landscaping needs to be irrigated. You know, just this one point, why is that important? Because let's say you have 36 homes, right? And you have 36 water meters, right? Well, oh, wow. Well, it says all, you know, everything needs to be irrigated. That means that if you have any grass that is outside of that actual lot, which you would, because you have some common space, it needs to be irrigated, which means you now have a secondary water meter that you need to account for in your construction budget, right? Because now it's another tap and it's now a bill to the HOA. So you want to make sure that you read, you understand all of the notes and all the requirements on your special notes and specified notes of every single sheet. Okay. Your stormwater has, like, for instance, and I won't bore you to death because it'll be a lot to cover, but you have to do what's called an as-built drawing. So when we create our stormwater structures, right, the little drain that rain goes into, once that is done, you know, so we have civil engineer plan, the blueprints that say, hey, go ahead and put this in. Then what we have to do is do an as-built. And what that means is the surveyor is going to come back and he's going to actually survey the structure that you put into the ground is actually at the depth and the latitude or longitude that is specified by the civil engineering drawing. Is it, because if it's off, you didn't do it per plan, right? So now your Lego piece is crooked, right? So it's ensuring that it's done correctly. And because you use that benchmark, right, at the beginning of the project, you ensure that it's actually in the right spot, in the right elevation. So what you'll do is do it as built, and this is what the stormwater department is saying, is that it wants you to present that to them for them to give you an approval. So a whole bunch of notes, very important. Typically you have a signature here telling you that your stuff is approved and some signatures at the bottom. This is what's called your sheet list table. Your sheet list table will have all of the sheet numbers, and it's going to have your plans for for your sheets and like all the plans per sheet, right? So this in Nashville, you have like this is another all these other notes, your erosion prevention, it has your grading and drainage notes, etc. Okay, demolition. So in here, this is what's called your existing conditions. So right now, when this thing got surveyed, this is the existing conditions. You have a house here, you've got some bushes. This is the current topography. Okay, so that's what this sheet calls for. Then you have what's called your demolition. Like what are we actually going to do to this site? On this site specifically, like there's a house, we're going to actually keep that house. We're not going to demo it. Everywhere else, it's going to talk about uh are you like this says cut and cap sanitary sewer upstream of existing manhole, plug the opening on the west side of the manhole. So it's telling us exactly what we're going to have to what we have to actually do. And then here we're going to have to protect the tree from silt. So we'll put like little noodles around it. So it tells us exactly what to do for our demolition or clearing of the site. Okay. The next one is going to be your overall layout. So this is just overall, this is what the site's going to look like. And then you're going to get into your detailed layout plan. And your detailed layout plan is going to actually start talking about distances and the radiuses that are actually going to be on the drawing. Okay. Also, one of the things I wanted to mention is, let me see, over here to the right, you always have a revision. So let's say we got on site and we need the engineer to revise it. This is very important because it has a revision date of like Metro Water, stormwater. They wanted a specific thing. We're confirming that this sheet now is in line with that comment of MWS. So we're on the right revision of our plan. Okay. So this is the detailed layout plan. And as you can tell here, there was a couple, right? So on the next sheet, so your detailed layout plan is going to be sometimes 2, 3, 4 pages. So let's just talk about it. Okay. So here you have, instead of concrete, you talk about, okay, how do I get my costs, my takeoffs, right? How do I get, how much is this going to cost me? So there are companies that'll do what's called a takeoff. They'll figure out all the materials. Your civil engineer will give you an estimate of construction, and a civil contractor will look at all these plans. And the more details there are, the more like apples to apples you're going to get of an actual bid. So it's very important that you have very good detailed plans. For instance, like this says a 5-foot by 3.5-foot concrete pad for a mail kiosk, right? So now you have to think, okay, I have to get a mail kiosk. Not only does it have to have a concrete pad, but now I have to buy the actual kiosk. So this is going to allow you to really figure out how much this whole thing is going to cost you. And then we'll talk about here in a second about some value engineering of what you can do. So what I wanted to get to this detailed layout plan. All right, here we go. So now you're talking about your grading plan. So your lines that are lightly dashed are your current and existing grading, and the ones that are solid is what elevation we're actually going to grade to. So here, for instance, in this line, we are at 465 elevation, but we're going to actually grade this. This little dot here says 465, but here's 459. So that is what, 6 feet of cut. That means we have to cut out in that section 6 feet to make sure we are in line with what the civil engineer is saying. So that's what all these marks are. The civil engineer is telling us how they want us to grade this site. Okay. So And then this is what's called the cross section, and it's telling us that this is our current existing grade, but this is our proposed grade. So in this instance here, you have we are cutting, but in this instance here, we're actually filling. I don't know if you can see that, right? So, and it'll tell you at what degree and what elevation and at what slope you're actually cutting and or filling your site. So, all right. So this kind of continues, and then here on this sheet we have our stormwater. This is where our stormwater and grading is very important. So your structures, based on how your civil engineer grades your plan, they need to make sure that you see how this little site kind of looks like this. What this is your high point. It's called your high point. And what happens is they're grading all this in the entire site to then go into these little structures, these little black little squares. Those are your stormwater structures and your stormwater pipe. I will fast forward to
Those are
what I'll
like the
do.
ditches that the water drains into
Correct.
on the
All right.
side of the curbs.
So here we are. We're at the grading plan. This is what I wanted to kind of talk to you about. So this is where on this specific site, because it's an SP, you're telling the city exactly what kind of homes you're going to build. And in Nashville, they want to know the elevation of what's called the finished floor elevation, FFE, of every single unit. Okay. So when you go here, per se, let's see. So when you go here, it says your elevation is 455.5. That means 455.5 feet above sea elevation. And then this is 457 feet, 457. That means when I grade, this is that second home is going to be 2 feet higher than the one. So it's going to be kind of stair stepping up. This is important to quite a few people. One, it's important to your grader because it needs to grade accordingly. Second, it's important to your foundation people. Thirdly, it's important to your framing people because this structure is going to be one structure and they need to make sure that they follow this, right? So if you're actually constructing this, you need to make sure that's done properly. Okay. And then it also tells you all your discharge points for all of your stormwater. So then let's see. So this is your floodplain analysis. This says that this is in a floodplain. What do you need to stay out of? The places you need to stay out of, etc. Let's see. This is pretty extensive. Hold on. All right. So, see. All right. So here you have your cut and fill. Your person that's going to be grading your site is going to go off of these volumes on how much stuff they're going to cut. It means how much dirt they're going to take away and how much dirt they're going to have to put in and how are they going to balance the site. It's very important because that's how much they're charging you, because typically they charge you per yard of material moved or brought in. Okay. What I want to show you is also, so there's going to be in some of the sheets, you'll have details. And at the end of the sheets, we'll go over briefly, you'll actually have exactly how the cross section, how the city wants you to build this pond. There are many ways to build it. This is theirs, and they want to make sure that you build it in accordance to their specifications. So they'll have the cross sections and details on how that happens. So these are all details of every single stormwater and structure, etc. Then we're going to the actual structures. So it talks about every structure that you make, those structures that are on the side, your concrete that is actually the concrete that's in the ground, they're actually made to each project. The reason for that is because you have your inverts, right? The pipe that comes into the structure and the pipe that comes out of the structure to keep flowing, keep water flowing. that little thing is made specifically for the site. So we, those structures, that's what this detail is, because it wants to show your storm structure Charlie 1 is this size and this depth and this width. So then we send that over when we send the CDs to a company that makes structures, and they price that out specifically for this project. And it'll come onto the project when we order it, kind of like a Lego piece. I'll say Charlie 1, Charlie 2, Charlie 3, in accordance with your plan. Okay. And so here we are. So this is a great example. So you'll have all your structures, and you'll have exactly the inverts that we're talking about, pipe in and pipe out, and at what elevation, to make sure that those holes are made in those structures correctly. Okay. And then you'll have, you'll go through it. This is your stormwater. And then you'll have your, where they're supposed to be laid out, etc. In the same thing, just like that, you'll have your public water and sewer, because we need to know not only the size of your water, and we're running a little bit out of time, but your size of your water and sewer line, but you also want to know the depth of that sewer manhole. So here we have, to our left, 445 feet, and the bottom of this thing is about a 439. So this manhole that's in the ground at that specific elevation and latitude, longitude, right, is about 6 feet deep. But what's more important is that this, the invert for that manhole says that it's a 439.58. It's an 8-inch hole, and it's at a southeast, it's facing southeast at this specific station, which means this specific azimuth, right? Because, and well, all that is what angle is that pipe in that actual concrete structure. Okay. So all of this is important because you want to make sure that, you're looking for us. And before I finish, when one of the things that you do when you're doing the development is you're doing geotechnical, right? Geotechnical is the investigation of the subsurface, right? How much rock, etc., is on this plan. So while we're going through the planning process and getting approved, we're doing a geotechnical survey. The reason we do that is because we want to know where the rock is. So then the way that we lay out this site may be a little different. If we have a whole bunch of rock on one side, and we don't have any rock on this side, it may be beneficial for us to do maybe one less unit, or maybe it'll be beneficial for us to shift some units to get the sewer out of the rock. Another thing that we do at our firm is we try to ask the local municipality. Some of them are favorable to this or not, and some are not. So we say, hey, can we put the sewer in the front setback? So here, as you can tell, you have your sewer in the middle of the road. Well, sometimes we'll ask them, can we put it here in the grass? The reason that's important is because when I have to backfill, so remember that sewer was 6 feet deep. When I have to backfill, I got to backfill it with rock because there's going to be cars driving on it. When I backfill it on grass, I only have to have it 6 inches of cover, so 6 inches of gravel on top of that pipe, and then fill it back up with the dirt. Well, guess what? Now that means I have less dirt that I have to take off site, because when I dig this hole, I can put the dirt back in, and I have less rock and material that I have to bring onto site, and rock is very expensive. So it's just a cost saving measure. Additionally, another thing that we do is if there's a neighbor here, so on the other side of this project, this guy's got a retaining wall. What we are trying to do right now is we're trying to ask the neighbor, instead of putting a retaining wall, which is the reason we do that is because there's severe elevation change on close or near property line. What we would do is we would ask the neighbor for a slope easement to get onto their property and start grading from their property. So we have a 3-to-1 slope rather than putting a retaining wall, because a retaining wall is very expensive. If I give this guy $5,000 to get a slope easement for a piece of property that he doesn't even care about because it's the edge of their property, it may be a win-win. Another thing here, I want to go through we're almost done, out of time. want to go to your details. So these are all the details on a site, okay? And that's typically at the bottom of your plans. This tells you exactly to your contractor what kind of materials, what design, etc., that needs to be built on here. The reason that's important, and your trees, your landscaping, etc. Well, one of the other things that we try to do is we'll put in a cheaper curb, which is called an extruded curb. It's a 6-inch curb. Some engineers like what's called a curb and gutter, but per linear foot, a curb and gutter is about $39 in this market. And extruded curb is about $6.50 to $9 here in Nashville. It may change based on wherever you are, but that's what we've got to pay here. So we try to put the cheaper curb. Additionally, this plant schedule where the city's saying these are the plants that I want you to have. One thing that if you were to design the site, is you take this plant schedule rather than giving it to like a local nursery, you go to an actual wholesale nursery, you set up an account, and a tree that costs you $600, you can get for sometimes $70, $80. And you can just bring all, they'll deliver to site and your civil contractor will just install them. So I know it's a lot to cover. It's already 10 o'clock. So thank you guys for your time. I just wanted to cover as much of this as possible. It's really tough to cover all of it. But depending on your questions, that's kind of what I've got here. So if you understand how to do that, then you can, I believe, can do this. So you can, just like that, you could go ahead and develop communities and make them like so. Depending on your questions, that's kind of what I got. Brandon, you want to take this?
Yeah. And I mean, just to kind of recap, what you just said, I don't know the ins and outs of like the civil drawings plans. Obviously, it definitely helps to know that. But I mean, is that a requirement? Do you need to understand how to read everything to do this kind of stuff? Or if you hire a good civil engineer, are they going to be able to
I think if you
manage
hire a
most of
civil
it?
engineer, it's good, but I'll be honest with you. I think you definitely want to know how to read this, and you want to have somebody to kind of hold your hand, have had experience, because you may be a good civil engineer, right? And it's creating the best product, but sometimes the best product is not needed in that market. Sometimes it can't be, you got to make sure that, are extruded curbs great? They work, right? Are curb and gutter great? Yeah, they look great, but they cost a lot more money. So if you didn't know how to ask that question of your civil engineer, well, there you go. You just spent another $100,000 on your subdivision. Do you
Yeah.
want to just give away $100,000 because? So, you don't have to know these things, but you will be leaving a significant amount, millions of dollars on the table if you don't. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Are there third party people you can hire to audit your plans if you don't want to do that and look at
Yeah,
them?
so there are some companies that'll value engineer your plan. So you can hire a third party. So you got your civil engineer, and then you just give your plan to another engineering firm to what's called VE, value engineer your site. So, and then there's also companies, for instance, SciTech, which is a GPS company that creates from this PDF and from the CAD, we input the a SciTech file, a CAD file that is then put into a computer database GPS platform that is hold on a second. That is a GPS platform that it then talks to the computers that are in the actual machines. Those folks, because they have already created that GPS file, those folks can help you create. Sometimes they have that service. They'll do the takeoff so you can get the numbers of what it should actually cost you. So when you
Yeah.
get bids, you can kind of have apples to apples and compare.
Great. Yeah. So all that's to say you don't have to be a pro knowing it. There's ways around it. And, if you've been on any of these courses that we've done here before, these trainings, we're starting our own land development mastermind. We're creating a group of visionaries that want to bring their new communities to life. This is some of the stuff that we teach in the course. We've got the land development accelerator, which is all about the land. That's all about the systems, the processes, the training, the civil engineering management guide. We kind of scratched the surface today. If you want like a deep dive, then we do have that in the land development accelerator program. We also have the capital raising machine, because a lot of people are like, great, I've found a piece of land and I want to do this big, beautiful development. I have no clue how to go and get the money. So we've got the capital raising machine that is everything that we've learned to raise over $15 million of equity from investors. So we've got that in the course. And then the actual community itself, this is where every single week we hop on. In fact, at 11 here, we're hopping on with the members, and we're going to do Q&A calls. People are bringing their developments to this calls. They're asking for feedback on property that they're looking at. And so the whole goal is to get their obstacles removed as quick as possible and get them to a payday as quick as possible. We've got our own online community as well, where people post in the forums any questions that they have. So there's 24/7 access. It's not just Alex and I, but everybody in the community can look at that and give you feedback and pointers on anything that you post. We set up the actual battle rhythms, like, hey, this is what it takes to be successful. This is what you need to be doing on a weekly basis to be successful. And we help you basically implement and support everything. So really, if you're getting stuck on something, that's kind of what the community is for, and that's what the weekly calls are for. And we give you access to our systems. If you're interested in something like this, if you like the idea of a community of other land developers that you can lean on and go to for support, then you can learn more at learnlanddevelopment.com. Pretty basic, learnlanddevelopment.com. And with that, we'll go to some questions. David Wolf asks, what is average typical time to develop the entitled land in Middle Tennessee? So I guess that's two part. Like, how long does it take to get it entitled if you just wanted to sell the paper? And then how long if you actually want to do the development where you're putting all the roads and the utilities and everything in?
Look, it's a great question.
You've got a little bit of an echo now.
Can you hear me? All right.
Yeah.
So it's better now. Okay. So it all depends. You either can, it depends on the municipality. Some municipalities are like 6 months, right? You can go from submit concept because you've already talked to them. You already know what they want, right? It's all about setting the expectations and talking to the local municipality about it up front, right? So that's kind of what we teach. And there's ways of doing that. Understanding the all the folks that are decision makers, right? That are going to move the needle. Are you in line? Is your concept plan aligned with what they want? Then having the preliminary plat approval and then picking the correct civil engineer to do the civil engineering plans. So that process can take 6 months. Sometimes it can take 12 months. If you're in California, it's going to take 24 to 36 months. Okay. But you have to set those expectations. And in certain areas where it takes longer, typically the cost of those lots are more expensive because the process takes longer. So that's what the market kind of yields, right? Because that's the expectations. So Williamson County here and around Nashville takes a very long time. Williamson County lots are pretty expensive, right? In city of Dixon, maybe it's a little faster, but the city of Dixon, the lots are not as expensive, right? So, and the requirements are not as extensive from stormwater and from road widths and depths and all those things. So it all just depends. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. So here it's localized, David. I'm gonna give you a direct answer. It's gonna take you on average 12 months to get the paper approved, and it's gonna take you an average of another 12 months to do the development. So you're looking at a 2-year process on a piece of land that is not approved for a community. But what I love about this is you don't have to do the development. You can make great money just getting the paper approved and entitled and just selling it off to another builder or developer. As you saw, we had a deal like, we made $446,000 in less than 12 months on a deal that we did like that. So you can also do the horizontal. You're going to make more money doing that, right? Because you're force appreciating the value of the land through that process. So 12 months usually to get the entitled paper approved here in Middle Tennessee, and then another 12 months to do the actual development on it. Let's see. Oh, Mrs. Lott. I can't pronounce that first name. That's a very pretty name, though. Marinella. Why would Metro require irrigation? Is this typical? There's so many reasons for a lot of things. That's why it's good to go and sit down with the city and figure that out. It might not be obvious. Alex, do you know why Metro would require irrigation? And is this typical?
Every municipality is different. So your municipality is different, and some of them will request it and some.
Yep. Perfect. And then David, I think we already answered his question, how long the horizontal build. So that's going to be 12 months less on that.
I had a class that I'm teaching
So.
land development.
Anybody else got any questions? Throw them in the chat. Great call, Brandon. Alex, have to hop on another call, but chat soon. All right. Well, with that, guys, we will leave y'all. Thanks for showing up today. We'll see you guys next time.